We understand that Washington is under a lot of pressure and Trump is facing pressure both domestically and internationally. And at the same time, that has raised the fear that he might declare a premature victory without meeting the said objectives of the war. And now there have been reports that there are some disagreements between Israel and Washington, which did surface in a very tense call that happened yesterday. But of course, the optics of it all and on the face of it all, Washington has said that they do meet eye to eye on the issue. But how aligned do you think Israel and the United States are on the Iran war at this juncture?
I think there's growing separation. The last thing that Netanyahu and his cabinet wants is for there to be a resolution without regime change in Iran and without a final deal on nuclear energy. And on what's going to happen with the highly enriched uranium. So there's 970 pounds of highly enriched uranium at 60% enrichment, but there are also thousands of pounds of lower enriched uranium and plutonium. Iran insists on having the right to enriched uranium. You know, all of this the United States had under the JCPOA, the deal that Obama negotiated with the help of a lot of other countries in 2015. But Trump tore it up. And it looks like Trump would love at this point to be able to get back to a deal that's almost as good as the one that he tore up. But the Iranians know they've got a chokehold, and they also know that the United States and Israel have attacked them illegally twice in the midst of negotiations. So they're in no mood to give Trump a pass on this or to make it easy for Trump. So that's why we're in a dangerous situation, because it could escalate. And the Iranians said now that if the U.S. and Israel start bombing again, then the Iranians are going to retaliate not only in the region, but outside the region. We don't know what that means, but it sounds quite ominous. We do know the CIA is reporting that Iran retains most of its capabilities, 75% of its launchers, 70% of its missiles. We know that Iran did successfully strike 217 U.S. military sites in the region, is significantly damaged 9 U.S. bases in the region in 5 different countries. So Iran has this capability at the same time that the U.S. and Israeli and Gulf state countries have lost most of their interceptors. So their ability to resist another Iranian attack is very, very limited. So the world hopes that this can be resolved diplomatically, but the United States would have to give a lot in order to get that resolution.
Right. And as you mentioned, of course, this is a big deal for Trump. But of course, it's also for Iran. At this point in time, of course, economically, it's something even they are not doing well. And if we talk about something like a toll, which is something, of course, not every country would want to give a toll to Iran on that part to get their ships to move from there, because in that case, I think every canal would do that. So when you look at how Iran or the concessions that they're doing, how do you assess Iran's position in this place? Are they just taking advantage of the fact that, of course, this is Trump is nearing the midterm elections, he's not able to resolve it? Or do you think that, how long can Iran hold at this point? Because there are some concessions both sides have to make to come to a deal.
Yeah, the Iranians are looking at the clock and they're looking at the calendar, and they know that Trump is desperate because his approval ratings are so low in the United States. The price of gas keeps going up. The price of diesel keeps going up. Fertilizer keeps going up. And the Iranians calculate that they can hold out longer than Trump can hold out at this point. And they're making very strong demands. They're saying they want the sanctions lifted. They want reparations. They want control over the Strait of Hormuz. They want the frozen assets. These are all things that the United States says it cannot accept. And Iran says we want a ceasefire, and then we want to deal later with the nuclear issues. Trump keeps saying, well, they can't have a nuclear bomb. The bad, terrible thing is that Iran was more than a year away from a nuclear bomb when Trump tore up the JCPOA. And the Iranian leader, Khamenei, had a fatwa against Iran developing a nuclear weapon. Now the moderate leadership has been killed in Iran. They've been replaced by hardliners, people with a vengeance who are in much less of a mood to compromise than the people who the Israel and the United States killed in those initial attacks. So that's why people who study this are not very optimistic. Trump, Rubio, Vance keep saying we're making progress, we're getting closer. You don't hear that coming out of Iran, and you don't hear that coming out of most of the experts.
All right, of course, we'll have to, of course, hope for the best. But of course, it looks, as you suggested, there were reports of Iran building its arsenal at the same time. Then there's Trump, the elections and everything. Of course, it seems like this is a moment where they have to get down and get to a deal, because that's leading to a global economic problem. But thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and giving your perspective on this. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for having me.